Hey guys, Mr. Backerwork here. In this video we're going to look at long division and the division algorithm. Being able to factor out a polynomial is a great way to figure out its zeros and a lot more about the graph of the function. But sometimes factoring, depending on what our polynomial looks like, can get pretty difficult. So it's important to have other ways to be able to break down a polynomial into smaller pieces. And one of those ways that we're going to use is polynomial long division. Now we're going to treat polynomial long division just like we would with integers, except instead of dealing with just numbers as we're doing our division, we are going to be looking at some larger polynomial functions. So the first set of division that we're going to look at doing in here is we're going to take 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 8x plus 7, and we're going to divide that by 3x plus 2. Now when we're doing our polynomial long division, we want to take a look at the first terms in our polynomial and in our divisor. And we need to figure out how many times that 3x is going to fit inside of the 3x cubed. So one thing we can do is off to the side, just think of taking 3x cubed and dividing it by 3x. So the 3 on top and bottom would cancel out, and one of the powers of x on top would cancel out with the x on the bottom. So that would leave us with x squared. So now what we're going to do with that x squared is we're going to put it on top of our division bar, and I like to keep things lined up. So I'm going to put that x squared on top of my other x squareds. And now what I'm going to do is take this x squared and distribute it to the 3x plus 2. So when I take my x squared times the 3x, I'm going to get 3x cubed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack that below the other 3x cubed. And then I'm going to take my x squared times this 2, and we're going to get plus 2x squared. And again, I'm going to keep things lined up in columns. Now what I need to do with this is I need to subtract this from that original polynomial that we were dealing with up top. So when I take 3x cubed minus 3x cubed, that's going to cancel out. And when I take 5x squared minus 2x squared, that's going to leave me with 3x squared. And now we haven't used this 8x and this 7 yet, so what I'm going to do with those is I'm just going to drop them down to the next line. And now down here, now we're looking at a 3x squared as our first term. So I'm going to look at the 3x squared and my 3x, and I need to figure out how many times 3x fits into 3x squared. So again, off to the side, I'm going to take the 3x squared and I'm going to divide it by the 3x. So the 3's cancel out. One of those powers of x on top cancels out with the x on bottom, so we're left with just a regular x. So I'm going to stack that up on top of my division bar above the regular x's. And then again, I'm going to multiply this x by this 3x plus 2 so that we can do a little subtraction. So x times 3x is 3x squared, and x times 2 is plus 2x. And again, we're subtracting this stuff from that polynomial above. So 3x squared minus 3x squared, that stuff is going to cancel out. And if I take 8x minus 2x, that's going to leave me with 6x. And then I still have this plus 7 that I haven't used yet, so I'm going to continue to drop that down. Now I've got 6x as my first term, and I want to figure out how many times 3x is going to fit in there. So I take the 6x divided by the 3x. The x's are going to cancel each other out. And when I take 6 divided by 3, that's going to leave me with 2. So I'm going to put my 2 on top of that division bar, so plus 2 on there. 2 times 3x is 6x, and 2 times 2 is 4. And then we're subtracting these things. So the 6x minus 6x, that stuff is going to cancel each other out. And when I take 7 minus 4, I'm going to get 3. Now, as I look at what's happening in here, I can't take 3x and fit it into my 3 anymore, because this 3 doesn't have any more variables on it. So this 3 is actually a remainder. Now as far as writing out the answer for our division problem, there's a couple different ways that we can do it. The first way that we're going to look at is we're going to take our divisor, which is the thing that we were dividing by. So in this case, that's the 3x plus 2. And we're going to multiply that by the quotient, which is the answer that we got on top of our division bar after running through and doing this whole process. So that's the x squared plus x plus 2. But then sometimes we've got a remainder that we need to worry about. So in this case, we had the 3. So what we would do is we would add on the remainder on the end. So I'm going to put the plus 3 on the back end of this. And all of this stuff, when we put all of these things together, this should equal our dividend, which is the big long polynomial that we started with underneath our division bracket. So that's the 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 8x plus 7. Now we're going to do another example using polynomial long division. We're going to take 2x to the 4th minus x cubed minus 2, and we're going to divide that by 2x squared plus x plus 1. Now before we get started, I want you to take a look at the dividend, which is the thing underneath that division bracket, and it's got some missing terms. There's not an x squared term in there, and there's also not a plain x term in there. And one thing that can be helpful to do if you're missing a term is to fill in some 0 placeholders. So what I'm going to do is, instead of putting this minus 2 right on the end there, I'm going to fill in a plus 0x squared plus 0x, and then attach my minus 2 on the back end. And now we're going to start running through and doing our division. So I want to look at my first term. So I've got the 2x to the 4th and the 2x squared. So I want to see how many times 2x to the 4th can be divided by 2x squared. So the 2's are going to cancel out, and on top we're actually going to be able to cancel out 2 powers of x with the x squared on bottom. So we're going to be left with x squared. So I'm going to stack that up on top of my other x squareds that I got once I filled in that 0 placeholder. And then I'm going to distribute this x squared through that divisor. So x squared times 2x squared is 2x to the 4th. X squared times x is plus x cubed. X squared times 1 is plus x squared. And we're subtracting this stuff from that big long polynomial that we started with. So 2x to the 4th minus 2x to the 4th cancels out. Negative x cubed minus another x cubed is going to give us negative 2x cubed. And if I take 0x squared minus an x squared, that'll be minus x squared. And then I'm going to drop down the rest of my terms. Now if I look at my first terms again, I've got the negative 2x cubed and the 2x squared. So if I divide those out real quick, the 2's will cancel out. We can cancel out a couple of the x's on top with the x squared on bottom. So we're going to be left with negative x. So I'm going to put that on top, minus x. And then I'm going to distribute the negative x through this divisor over there. So negative x times 2x cubed is negative 2x cubed. Negative x times x is negative x squared. And negative x times 1 is negative 1x. And again, we're subtracting these things. Negative 2x cubed minus negative 2x cubed is going to cancel out. Negative x squared minus negative x squared is going to cancel out. If I take 0x minus negative 1x, that's going to leave me with a positive x, and then I'm going to drop down my minus 2. Now notice, with this x in here, I can't fit 2x squared inside of the x because this x squared has a higher power on it than this x down here. So this x minus 2 is going to turn into our remainder this time. Now I said there was a couple different ways that we're going to write out our answers. So we're going to look at this one a little bit differently. What we're going to do here is we're going to take our dividend, which is the thing underneath our division bracket. But when I write this out, I'm going to take the zeros out of there. And we're going to divide it by the divisor, so the thing on the outside. And what this is going to equal is our quotient. So that's the answer on top of our division bracket. But then what we're going to do is we're going to make a fraction on the back end with our remainder over our divisor. So on the back end here, we would take the x minus 2 over the 2x squared plus x plus 1. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.